Hello, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm a career coach here at Career Mentor, and we help high-performing financial services professionals make their next smart career move. So we all know what it's like to be on the receiving end getting our annual appraisal. We know what it feels like to know how well we're doing. That is, of course, assuming that we hear a word that's said before we actually hear what the number is going to be for our bonus. But wouldn't it be fun and perhaps very useful to write what I call a reverse appraisal? That is, to appraise the firm that we're working for, to appraise the situation that we're in and the people who we're surrounded by, including our colleagues and our bosses. I think there's a lot of value to be gained by this notion. In fact, somebody once said that leaders only really do three things. They see the situation as it is now, not worse than it is, not better than it is, but as they appraise it right now. They then come up with a vision as to how things would be better. What does great look like? And then finally, they create a plan and take action in order to close that gap. So with that in mind, I think we can look at using a reverse appraisal, perhaps at two levels of looking at things. Level number one is to review the situation at a macro level, and perhaps at that level we're going to be able to have less influence and less ability to improve the situation. And then second level, level two, is about a more immediate environment. Let's talk about level one first. So level one is worth writing an appraisal about what's going on in our industry, how well our firm is doing, how well our firm is doing vis-a-vis its competition, how well our firm is doing at meeting the needs of its marketplace, delivering what our clients want and adapting to their changing tastes and the tastes in which they want things delivered. How well is the leadership team guiding and driving this firm through the ever-shifting and complex and dynamic environment, especially given the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So what's going on at a macro level? As I say, there may be less that we can do to influence that, but at least it's a great idea to occasionally lift our head up from our day-to-day work, survey the horizon, and understand where we are in a bigger picture, in a bigger context. The second level is level two, which is all about the more immediate environment. And this is where we have the opportunity to understand and improve our situation. I think there are 7 steps that we can take. Let's work through them now. Step number one is to decide the criteria against which we're going to write our reverse appraisal. Those criteria may include things like the nature of the relationship that we have with our boss, with our colleagues, with our clients, how well skilled we are to perform the tasks that we're being asked to do, how well resourced we are, and so on. I don't want to give you too exhaustive a list because these ideas need to come from you, but those are just some notions, hopefully, to get you started. So that's step number one, is to come up with your criteria. Step number two then is to take each criterion in turn and write 5 things that you think are really good or positive about that situation. Now, because we're human, it's all too often that we can go to the negative first, but we're not going to do that here. We're going to first drag out of ourselves 5 things that are going well or which are great against each of our chosen criterion. Step number 3 is where we are going to look at things which frankly could be better. And we want to have an eye on the fact that these need to be things that are probably items that we can do something about. Once we've got that list of 3 or 4 things that could be better or the negatives, we then go to step number 4, and that is to review those negative things and have a reality check. Ask yourself the question, is this in fact true? Is this just my perspective given the data that I have available? And so just shake and test those negatives that you've got at the moment. We move now on to step number 5, and step number 5 has 2 bits to it. The first is to look at the positives, and let's write down a list of all the things that you can do in order to ensure that all the great things that are going on against each of your criteria continue to do so. So what are the actions that you can take to continue and keep the good stuff? Perhaps even take some of that good stuff and move it into other contexts within your career and your job. The second part of step number 5 is to make a creative list of all the things that you can take action on to improve the negatives. Maybe move them from a neutral to a positive, or just from a negative to a neutral would be good enough. Let me give you an example. Let's say you feel that your relationship with your boss could be better, and that one way of doing that would be improve the level of communication that you have. Well, the specific ways that you could do that would be to ask your boss how they like to communicate. So would that be email? Would that be text? Would that be face-to-face? Would it be Zoom? How do they like to communicate? Ask about the frequency. How often do they want to be communicated? Maybe daily, maybe weekly, or whatever it might be. And also specifically, how do they like the structure of the communication to work? So they may have an idea about, here's the issue, here are the possible solutions, this is my chosen one, what do you think? So having actionable ideas about what you can do to improve that particular negative. Step number 6 then is to review your creative list, both for keeping the good stuff going and improving the negatives, and come up with things which are going to be very actionable and most impactful, and choose just a few of the things on that list that you can work on for each of your criterion. Then take action. Then take action to implement those things with a sound plan. The final step, number 7, is to hold yourself accountable. This is where we need to notice what progress we're making. If it's working, then keep doing it. If what you're doing isn't working or not getting the results, then review and refine it, or perhaps change the actions that you're taking altogether. Perhaps another way of keeping yourself, an additional way of keeping yourself accountable, is to lock into your diary 6 months' time to do another reverse appraisal so that you can actually see the progress that you're making. The final thing to say is that both at level 1, the more macro picture, and perhaps at level 2, your more immediate environment, you may come to the conclusion that no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to improve the situation in any meaningful way. And it may reluctantly be time for you to come to the conclusion that actually it might be worth considering moving on. This might be because the environment that you're working in is quite toxic, or perhaps you've hit a plateau in your career and the opportunities for growth in your current environment are just not there. So look at that, but look at it slowly and come to that conclusion only after a good deal of thought. But it may indeed be time for you to think about making a career transition to a new and better firm. I hope you found this useful. I'll be putting a link to all of this into the blog that I wrote about this in the comments below. And thanks very much.